I still remember the exact moment I picked up the 48 Laws of Power. It was in an airport bookstore, right after I had just lost the company I spent 4 years building. Not because the idea failed, not because the market collapsed, but because I trusted the wrong people and said too much to the wrong ones. I wasn't browsing for inspiration. I was angry, exhausted, and honestly embarrassed. When I saw that blue cover, I almost laughed. Power? I didn't think power was my problem. I thought bad luck was. What caught me wasn't the title alone, but the reputation. Everyone I knew either praised this book like a secret weapon or warned me it was dangerous. That kind of divide does something to you. If a book makes people uncomfortable, it's usually because it says something true that no one wants to admit. I bought it, boarded my flight, and started reading before the plane even took off. The preface hit me harder than I expected. Robert Greene opens by saying that feeling powerless is one of the most miserable human experiences, and that most of us pretend we're not playing power games while still being crushed by them. That sentence alone felt like it was written directly at me. I had spent years telling myself I was above politics, above manipulation, above strategy. Meanwhile, my own business was quietly slipping out of my control. As I kept reading, Greene compares modern life to an old royal court, where everything looks polite on the surface. But underneath, everyone is maneuvering for position. That metaphor rewired how I saw my past decisions. I realized I hadn't lost my company in a dramatic betrayal. I lost it in dozens of small moments where I assumed loyalty instead of reading incentives, where I spoke honestly when silence would have protected me, where I treated friends like partners without understanding how power changes relationships. By the time I reached the early laws, especially the warning that power is immoral and that outcomes matter more than intentions, I felt exposed. I had always believed that good intentions would shield me. Greene made it painfully clear that intentions don't protect you from consequences. Results do. That flight felt shorter than it ever had. When we landed, I wasn't motivated or inspired. I was unsettled, and I knew one thing for sure. This book wasn't entertainment. It was a mirror, and I didn't like what it showed me. Before reading the 48 Laws of Power, I genuinely believed that trusting friends was a strength. My first company was built almost entirely on that belief. I partnered with people I liked, people I had history with, people who had shared drinks and long conversations with me. It felt natural. Greene's second law, never trust friends too much, learn how to use enemies, felt almost insulting when I first read it. I remember pausing and thinking, this is cynical nonsense. Friends don't betray you. Strangers do. But as Greene explains the law, he doesn't frame it as cruelty. He frames it as psychology. Friends, he says, are more likely to envy you, to feel entitled, to blur boundaries. Enemies, on the other hand, have something to prove. As I read his historical examples, especially how rulers were often betrayed by those closest to them, I felt an uncomfortable recognition building. My situation wasn't unique. It was predictable. I started replaying moments from my business with this new lens. The casual conversations where I revealed too much because we're all on the same team. The financial decisions I didn't question because I trusted intentions instead of structures. Greene emphasizes that gratitude is unreliable and that favors often create resentment rather than loyalty. That line hit me hard. I had assumed generosity would buy commitment. Instead, it had quietly weakened my position. One passage that stuck with me was Greene's warning that mixing friendship and power almost always creates confusion. Power demands distance. Friendship dissolves it. I realized how often I had avoided difficult conversations because I didn't want to damage relationships. Meanwhile, those same relationships were slowly eroding my authority. By the time I finished that chapter, the betrayal I experienced stopped feeling personal. That was the most unsettling part. It wasn't that my partner was evil. It was that I had created an environment where betrayal was almost inevitable. No clear hierarchy, no defined leverage, just trust floating in the air, unsupported by structure. That chapter forced me to accept something I had avoided my entire adult life. Good intentions don't replace strategy, and friendship, when mixed with power, doesn't protect you. It blinds you. The hardest part of the 48 Laws of Power wasn't accepting that I'd been naive. It was realizing that the laws I resisted the most were the ones describing my exact behavior. Law 3, conceal your intentions, felt almost offensive when I first read it. I had built my identity around transparency. I told people my plans, my goals, my fears, I thought openness made me trustworthy. Green framed it differently. He argued that clarity invites resistance, and that revealing your intentions gives people time to prepare against you. I didn't want to believe that, but the more I reflected, the more obvious it became. Every time I announced what I wanted to do next, someone adjusted their behavior, sometimes subtly, sometimes aggressively. I had mistaken predictability for integrity. Green wasn't saying lie constantly. He was saying, stop giving away leverage for free. Then came Law 4, always say less than necessary. That one hurt in a quieter way. I talk when I'm nervous. I explain myself when I feel misunderstood. Green's argument is brutal in its simplicity. The more you talk, the weaker you appear. Power, he says, lives in silence and restraint. I remembered negotiations where I filled pauses with justifications, only to realize later I had talked myself into worse terms. Another law that unsettled me was Law 5, about reputation. Green describes reputation as a form of stored power, something that precedes you into every room. I had never managed my reputation intentionally. I assumed results would speak for themselves. Meanwhile, others were crafting images, narratives, expectations. No wonder I was constantly underestimated. What made these chapters disturbing wasn't their cynicism, it was their accuracy. Green wasn't inventing a dark worldview. He was naming patterns that already existed, patterns I had been participating in without understanding them. By the middle of the book, I stopped reading defensively. I started reading diagnostically. Instead of asking whether the laws were moral, I asked whether they were real. And once I accepted that they were, the discomfort slowly turned into clarity. There was a moment somewhere past the middle of the 48 Laws of Power when I realized the book wasn't changing my tactics yet. It was changing my emotional reactions. Green talks repeatedly about how emotional responses are the biggest weakness in power dynamics. Anger, pride, the need to prove a point, all of them make you predictable. When I read that, I felt exposed again. Almost every bad decision I'd made as an entrepreneur had come right after an emotional spike. I used to react immediately. If a partner challenged me, I defended myself. If someone crossed a line, I confronted them on the spot. Green's insistence on patience felt unnatural at first, almost cowardly. But then he reframed patience as control. The person who can wait, who can observe without reacting, holds the advantage. That idea alone forced me to slow down my entire decision-making process. One section that stuck with me described power as a game of distance. You need enough emotional distance to see patterns instead of moments. I realized how often I was trapped inside the moment, arguing details, chasing fairness, trying to be understood. Green didn't care about being understood. He cared about outcomes. That shift was uncomfortable, but it was also freeing. I began experimenting with restraint in small ways, saying less in meetings, not responding immediately to messages designed to provoke me, letting silence do the work. What surprised me was how people filled that silence themselves. They revealed doubts, intentions, even insecurities, without me asking. Green was right. When you stop reacting emotionally, others start exposing themselves. Another idea that rewired my thinking was Green's emphasis on indirect action. Stop confronting problems head-on if it weakens you. Go around them. Influence the environment instead of the person. I saw how many times I had tried to win arguments and lost leverage in the process. This wasn't about becoming cold or manipulative. It was about regaining control over myself first. The more emotionally neutral I became, the clearer everything looked. For the first time, I wasn't just playing the game harder. I was actually seeing the board. By the time I finished the 48 Laws of Power, I wasn't thinking about revenge, domination, or becoming some ruthless version of myself. I was thinking about rebuilding, slowly and correctly this time. Green never promises happiness or virtue. What he offers is awareness. And awareness, I realized, was exactly what I had lacked before. When I started my next business, I didn't announce it. I didn't share big visions over drinks. I didn't look for partners based on chemistry or history. I applied the laws quietly, almost invisibly. I structured everything around incentives instead of trust. Roles were clear. Power was defined. Silence became a tool instead of something I rushed to fill. I paid close attention to reputation, not by bragging, but by letting others talk for me. What surprised me most was how different people treated me. Not because I was louder or more aggressive, but because I was harder to read. Green talks about how mystery creates authority. I saw that happen in real time. Meetings became shorter. Negotiations shifted in my favor. People listened more closely when I spoke less. The book didn't make me paranoid, but it did make me realistic. I stopped expecting fairness and started planning for outcomes. I stopped taking betrayal personally and started seeing it as information. That alone saved me countless emotional spirals. Power, as Green describes it, isn't about crushing others. It's about not being crushed because you refuse to see how the world actually works. Do I agree with every law? No. Some feel extreme when taken literally, but taken as awareness instead of commandments, they're invaluable. The book didn't turn me into someone else. It stripped away illusions I was clinging to. If you've ever felt blindsided, undervalued, or quietly outmaneuvered, this book will probably make you uncomfortable. That's exactly why it matters. And if you've read it already, I'm curious what laws hit you the hardest. Leave a comment and tell me. If this kind of breakdown helped you see the book differently, subscribe and stick around. I share what actually changes when ideas move from pages into real life. Some stories don't entertain, they transform. This was one of them.